now, and we will go ahead and get started. So hopefully you can all see my screen. The first thing that we're going to talk about is actually the ECES website. So I don't know if you've all already registered for the website. If you haven't, I'll show you how to do that. So if you go to this web address, eces.ff.suni.cz, and click login on the top right. If you've already created your username and password, then of course you know you'll just log in here with the username that you created. If not, you'll register for a new account and you'll type in your details. So I've just created a sample here. First lesson that Z and Y are opposite on Czech keyboard. Okay, and then you'll click register. And so after that, you'll have a chance to create your own username and password. So I'll just do this. And so once you create your username and password, you'll be logged into the website, and that's the username and password you'll use for the entire semester. Right now, the website will look pretty bare. You'll see this weekly calendar here, which won't have anything on it yet because you're not registered for classes yet. Once you register for classes, your weekly schedule will be here. For now, the most important thing is on the left side of the screen, the semester information page. So if you go to semester information, you'll see your pre-departure checklist. Right now, I have a sample for the summer, so that way you can see also the course list, but yours will say fall at the top. You'll be able to click your pre-departure guide, and where you'll see all of the information that you need for the summer program. For now, we're going to go through the visa process, and then I'll speak a little bit more about the website later. So, for the visa application process, this is the list of all of the documents that you'll need to submit for your Czech visa application, and we're going to go through each of them step by step so that way you know exactly what you need to submit. So the first document that we're going to go through is the visa application form, and I'm actually going to pull up the sample visa application so that you can see it. This is linked to on the semester information page of your semester information page. So let me log in. Okay, so now you should see my screen again. This is what your semester information page will look like, and on here you'll see your pre-departure checklist, which has the sample visa application. So we're going to open that, and I'm going to go through each item for you so that you can see what you need to fill in. So on this application form, number 1 is your family name, your last name, and so that's pretty simple. Number 2 is your last name if you've had a different last name before. If you've never changed your last name, then you can leave this line blank. Number 3 is your first name, and it should also be your middle name only if your middle name is on your passport. So at this time, it's really important that you check your passport so that way you can write your name exactly as it appears there because it cannot be any different at all. Number 4 is your date of birth, and this should be again in day, month, year format. This is the standard format in Europe. Your place of birth, if you were born in the US, should be the city and the state should be spelled out. And then underneath, you'll put your country of birth. If it's the US, you'll put USA. If it wasn't the US, please let me know, drop it in the chat box, and I can give you the country code for your country. Your original nationality and current nationality, again, if you're from the US, you're a US citizen, you can put USA. If not, let me know and I'll give you the country code. Number 8 and 9, you can just check the appropriate boxes. Number 10, on the first line is your father's last name, and then on the second line, it's his first name. Number 11 is your mother's last name, and that's her current legal last name, whatever her last name is now. And then the next line is her first name. The next, you should probably check ordinary passport, whatever kind of passport you have, most likely ordinary passport. Number 13 will be your passport number. And if it's a US passport, it should be issued by USA. Number 15 and 16 are the date of issue and validity date of your passport. You'll find this on the data page underneath your photo and your personal details. Make sure, again, you write this in day, month, year format. And also at this time, you should definitely double check that the validity date is past June of 2019 because your passport should be valid for at least 6 months past the program end date. And this means that it needs to be valid past June 2019. If it won't be valid past then, please let Bianca and I know as soon as possible so that way we know that you need to renew your passport, and you should also expedite that renewal. For number 17, you can actually leave this question blank unless you've lived in another country other than the US. If you have, please let me know before you fill it out, and I can help you fill out this question because it's a little complicated. Number 18, your current occupation should be student, and for the purposes of this visa application, it should be student even if you have another full or part-time job. Number 19, you'll put your home university's address, so either the name and address of SUNY New Paltz or your actual home university, whichever it is. For number 20 and 21, you'll copy these exactly as they are on the sample. So even for number 20, the way that we've written our university name, Charles University Faculty of Arts with no spaces, it should be written like this because otherwise it doesn't fit into the boxes. Number 22, you can leave blank unless you've been in the Czech Republic before for more than 3 months. Number 23 is the dormitory address, so you can copy that exactly. Number 24, you can leave blank. Number 25 will be 104 days. This is the number of days that your study program is, so it's the number of days that your visa is requested for. And this will be true even if you plan to arrive early to Prague or stay late, because these days will not be covered by your student visa. They'll be covered by tourism purposes, so you don't need a visa for that. Number 26, you can leave blank unless you've had another visa in the Czech Republic before. Number 27, you can leave blank unless you've had another visa for somewhere else in Europe before. Number 28, you'll check the study box. For 29 and 30, you can copy these dates exactly, again in day, month, year format. These are the arrival and departure days for the ECES program, and this is, it again needs to be written exactly as it is here because your visa will be for exactly the days of the program. And then for number 31 and 32, it's most likely that you'll be arriving to Prague by plane. So probably you'll put the same answers. If you already know you're arriving somewhere differently, you can add that information, but honestly, it's not too important if this changes later. Number 33, you can copy exactly as it's written here. This is the head of international relations at Charles University, and she's officially your legal inviting person. Number 34, the manner of funding your stay is yourself, and this is true even if you have scholarships or financial aid or some other funding. For the purposes of the visa application, the manner of funding your stay needs to be yourself. Number 35, your answer here will likely be cash and credit cards. We don't recommend that you bring traveler's checks as they're not really useful anymore. Another important piece of information is that American Express credit cards aren't really widely accepted in the Czech Republic, so we recommend that you bring cards like Visa, MasterCard, Discover, pretty much anything but Amex will be accepted widely. And then you'll also at the bottom check travel and or health insurance. Bianca, I think that you'll be giving them their insurance cards, yes? So you'll, or no, they'll be buying their Maxima insurance.
Yeah, I mean, I will give them their Geo Blue insurance cards, but I believe for that one they need their Czech ones.
Yeah, perfect. So leave this space blank for now because in a little while we'll go through how you can purchase your Czech health insurance, which is a requirement of the visa application, and then you'll insert the expiration date for that insurance here. Okay, so number 36 and 37, you can leave blank unless you have a spouse or children, in which case you will put in their details. And number 38, you will write your home permanent address. So this is the address most likely on your driver's license, for example. Before you start writing, though, please count out the boxes because many home addresses don't really fit into these boxes. Keep in mind that you need to spell out words like street or New York or Northwest, whatever it is. You can't make any abbreviations except for USA. If your address does not fit in these boxes, then you can continue it in this blank space under the address line to the right of the telephone number line. And you can also take away spaces if you need to. For number 39, you'll put your telephone number. So you'll start with +1, which is the country code for the US, and then your area code and phone number. And for number 40, you'll put your email address. For both of these, the phone number and the email address, they should be places where the consulate will be able to easily reach you, because if there's a problem with your visa application, then they will most likely email you first and then call you. So it's important that you actually check these numbers and email addresses. And then at the bottom, once you're all the way done through the application, you'll put in the place and date and your signature. And that's the end of the visa application form, so it's not too painful. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to let us know in the chat box or email us. The next document that you'll need is this document confirming your purpose of stay. So this document you don't need to actually do anything with. It's something that we will send to you. So we'll be sending these out to Bianca, and then she will send them to you. I don't know if she's already received any of them, but if she hasn't, she will soon. And then she'll send them along to you. So you'll be hearing from her about when you'll get them. This, you just need to check that your information, your name and your date of birth is correct. Remember that the date of birth will be in day, month, year format. It will be where these yellow Post-it notes are on this copy. The next document is your proof of accommodation. This is the agreement that you'll be living at the dorm during your stay in Prague. This is another document that we're sending to you, and it's actually 3 documents in one. So on this, you have to fill out some information. Where this word is, CISLO, just to the right of that in this blank space, you will put your USA, just to the right in this blank. That's your nationality. And then on this line here where it says home address, you'll put your home address. And on this line after OP, you'll put your passport number. And then at the bottom on this line here to the left of the signature Post-it, you'll sign. And so you'll have 2 copies of this document in Czech and 1 in English. 1 copy which you fill out is for you to submit with your visa application. 1 copy in Czech is for you to keep for your records. And the English copy is an unofficial copy, which again is just for your records so that you understand what it is that you're signing. And these you should keep with you. So when you travel to Prague, you should keep the second Czech copy and the English copy with you, just as proof that you have accommodation in case an immigration officer asks for it. Most likely they won't, but they could. So these are for your records. So the next thing that we need to talk about is your health insurance. So as we just alluded to, SUNY provides you with GeoBlue health insurance, but you also need to purchase Czech health insurance, which is local insurance. It's not super expensive, but it is a requirement of the visa that you have a local insurance provider. So I'm going to go through the steps of the website for this particular insurance provider. It's called Maxima Pojišťovna. This is a Czech company. There are other companies, but we recommend this one only because we work with them regularly and we know that they're English friendly and they reimburse for claims. So when you're ready, you'll go to this website, maximapojišťovna.cz. And if the website is in Czech, when you get there, you'll click English, EN at the top right. And then you'll click Foreigners Insurance here, Insure Online. And all of these instructions are also in your pre-departure guide, so you'll have them on file too. The pre-departure guide is located here on your semester information page, and the first section is dedicated to visa information. So if you scroll down to this page here, you'll see all of the visa information. Once you get here, you have two options. The first is foreigners complex medical insurance. This is a little bit of a bigger policy that will also cover you when you're traveling in the Schengen zone. The foreigners emergency medical care is the minimum that you need to purchase for your visa requirements. It's a little bit less expensive, and it only covers you in the Czech Republic. Because you have the GeoBlue insurance, I'm demonstrating this foreigners emergency medical care insurance, but if you feel more comfortable, you can purchase the complex medical insurance so that you have double coverage when you also travel in most European countries. Either way, it doesn't matter because both options will work for you for the purposes of your visa application. So once you select one, you can click continue. When you get to the next page, you will click 4 months, and then you'll put in your policy start date, which should be the program start date. If you're planning on coming to the Czech Republic a little early and you prefer to have the coverage, you can pick an earlier date. You just need to make sure that whichever expiration date pops up is the expiration date past the end date of the program. So in this case, it's in January, so it's completely fine. You still have some time before if you wanted to move it earlier. In any case, this policy is 1,600 Czech crowns. The complex one is 3,000 Czech crowns. It's a little less than double. But again, it provides you with extra coverage just to give you some perspective. So once you've done that, you can click continue. And then here you'll put in your last name and your first name. I'll use my sample from before. You'll put in your address details. You'll put in your phone number again with +1 and then the area code. I think I got your email address right, Bianca? And then once you put in all of that, you'll go continue. And so the next screen will pop up. It looks exactly the same as the previous screen. All it's asking for here is your nationality and your passport number. So once you've entered that information, you can continue, and you'll check over your details here. Make sure that you read over the general terms and conditions so that you know what it is that you're buying, and then you can click pay the premium. So before you put in your credit card details here, this is a really important step. Please make sure that you call your bank or credit card company before you pay for this insurance policy. This is going to count as a foreign transaction. So this is a transaction in the Czech Republic. And if you pay without calling your bank or card company to let them know that you'll be paying, they may think that the transaction is fraudulent because they're not really used to you paying for things in the Czech Republic, most likely. And so they may actually freeze your account or block the charge. So if you call them and let them know that you'll be making a payment for 1,600 Czech crowns, it's, around $80, and then they will probably release you to make that payment within 10 or 15 minutes, so that way your card isn't blocked. This is really important, and it's also important to do before you come to Prague for the semester, because otherwise you'll have a really hard time with your card being blocked and having to order new ones from your bank or unfreeze them. It's a really big pain. So that's a really important step here. Okay, so once you've done that, you'll get an email with an insurance contract that looks just like this one on the screen. Check over it to make sure that your details on the contract are correct, and then make sure that you download this contract and save it. You'll need to print off a copy of it to submit with your visa application. I also recommend that you forward me the email with your insurance contract, so that way I can keep it on file. This is a good idea because in case there's some emergency and we need to bring you to the hospital or something happens and you need your insurance contract, we have it on file. We will also have your SUNY provided GeoBlue insurance on file, but it's always good to have both because sometimes the hospitals in Prague can bill Maxima directly when you'd have to submit for reimbursement from GeoBlue. So it can be really helpful to have both policies protecting you. Okay, any questions about the health insurance? I haven't seen anything come through, so I'll keep going. All right, so the next document is this criminal history background affidavit. American citizens don't need to submit a full criminal record check. It suffices for them to submit this affidavit. So you can download this off the consulate websites or from the pre-departure guide. There's a link. It's pretty self-explanatory. The first is your given name, your first name, and again, it should be exactly the same as it is in your passport. So if your middle name is included in your passport, it should also be included here on this form. Your surname is your last name. If you don't have a maiden name, then you can leave that line blank. Your date of birth, again, in day, month, year format. Your place of birth, if it was in the USA, you should write the city and the state, and you should spell the state out. Your nationality, again, most likely USA. If it's not, then you can write the country. Your passport number and your permanent residence address. This is the same address that you wrote on your application form. Your telephone number, again, start with the country code +1, and then the same phone number and email address that you wrote on your application form. At the bottom of this form, where it's cut off here, there's actually a line for you to sign it as well, but be sure that you don't sign this form until you're in front of a notary. The notary will confirm that you are who you say you are and that the person who's signing it is the person on the form, and so they will need your legal ID, some passport or driver's license to notarize this form for you. So wait until you're standing in front of that person to sign it, otherwise they won't be able to sign it for you. There's one other document that you need to have notarized. It's this. So this is a document confirming your sufficient financial resources. This is a copy of the front and back of a debit card, which has to be in your name, and it has to be a debit card, not a credit card. It needs to be notarized as well, the photocopy. In the US, it's a little bit funny for US notaries to notarize photocopies. So in case the notary that you go to gives you a hard time and refuses to notarize it for you, what you can do is to write on the photocopy, I certify that this is an original copy of my debit card, and then ask them to notarize your signature on that statement, and that way you get the notarization on the photocopy, which has the statement and your signature. So that should be sufficient for them. We only say this because we've had some students complain in the past that they've had trouble getting this notarized, but it is a requirement of the application. So the next document is your bank account statement. This is tied to your debit card, so it needs to be a checking account that's tied to the debit card that you're photocopying. This must be a statement which is issued by the bank, and you can print an online statement. That's okay. So you don't need to wait for the full monthly statement. If you want to take a screenshot of your current statement and print that, it's not a problem. The statement doesn't need to be notarized. It just needs to show your name, the account number, and the balance. The account must be in your name. It's okay if your parent is a co-signer on the account, but your name needs to be on the account. And the bank account should have a minimum balance of at least $3,000. This is an approximate exchange or conversion of what the requirement is in Czech crowns. It's a pretty generous conversion, but we still recommend that you have more in your bank account just in case the exchange rate fluctuates a little bit. That way you don't have to worry. A lot of students don't have $3,000 in their checking account, and so of course we understand a lot of students in the past have had this question. If you don't, then what we recommend you do is ask somebody, usually a parent or a family member, if they are able to transfer some funds into your account so that you can show the minimum balance. Whatever happens to that money after you print your bank account statement is completely up to you, but at least at the time of printing the statement, it should be in your account. So if you need to do that in order to make the minimum balance, be sure that you do. It's important to know that this cannot be a savings account and the total balance cannot be combined checking and savings. It needs to be all in the checking account. Okay, does anybody have any questions about this requirement? No. I don't see any, so we'll move. Yes, the bank account statement is getting turned in with a visa. The question came through. All of these documents that we're going through are getting turned in with your visa application. These are all of the required documents. So some additional items that you need. In addition to all of these documents, you need to submit 2 original passport-sized photos. These are not photos of your passport, but actual passport-sized photos like you would take at CVS or Walgreens or whatever. So go get those taken and submit them with your passport. Before you submit them with your visa application, Please scan them and send them to me because we need passport-sized photos as well for your dormitory ID card and to help you buy your transportation pass once you get here. And since you're taking them anyway, it's better if you just send the passport-sized photos when you have them. About the passport photos, we have a question if they can be different than the photo that's on the passport. Yes, they can be different as long as it's a photo of you, then it's fine. Okay, so once you have all of those documents together, you should make a photocopy of every single document. Every document you need to submit the original plus a photocopy, so you'll submit 2 versions of absolutely everything, except your passport. You will submit your actual passport plus 2 photocopies of the data page. So the page with your picture on it, you'll submit the actual passport plus 2 copies of that data page. You should also keep a scanned copy of all of these documents for your own records. Whenever you submit important legal documents like this, you should always keep a copy for yourself as well. And after you've put everything together, I recommend and encourage you to scan and email them to myself and to Bianca. I'm sure she'd also be willing to look them over for you. That way we can check to see if we notice any major errors in the application. I'm happy to do that. I look over most of our students' applications just to make sure that they get approved the first time. Of course, I can't guarantee anything, but I've seen a lot of applications. So usually I can see if there's some error in them. So please feel free to do that. You all have my email address, so I'm happy to do that for you. So in order to submit it, if your permanent address is in New York, then you will submit your visa application in New York. There's an embassy in New York City. It's on East 73rd Street. It's on the Upper East Side, and it's fairly easy to get to. So if you live somewhere near New York City, or when you go home, your home is somewhere near New York City, and it's not too inconvenient for you to go there, we really recommend that you try and go in person to submit your visa application, although it's not required. So if you live really far away, I think we have one student from Fredonia this semester. It's not exactly close by. You can also submit your application in the mail. If you do that, you should send it with a USPS Express Mail envelope overnight with tracking and insurance, every possible safeguard you can put on the envelope because your passport's going to be inside of it. So it's really important that you know exactly where that envelope is at all times and that it gets to the embassy really quickly. If you're not from New York originally, your permanent address is not in New York, then you need to visit a different consulate, and that's on this page of the pre-departure guide. You'll see this chart which has all of the places where you need to apply depending on where your permanent address is. This is really important. You cannot apply in another state besides where you're assigned based on your permanent address, and it can't be based on your university address. It has to be based on your permanent address. So check this list if you're not from New York to see where your state needs to apply. And then once your visa is approved, you also need to pick up your passport because they'll keep your passport during the visa processing time. And so if you can go to the consulate in person, they will give you a application number when you submit your application, whether you submit it by mail or in person. And then once you are approved, you'll see your number on the website. You'll be able to check the list, and you can go in person to pick up your passport, which will have the visa inside of it. It's like a sticker on one of the blank pages. If you cannot go pick up your application in person, you need to include with your application a prepaid self-addressed overnight envelope, which is USPS Express Mail, again, overnight with tracking, with insurance, every possible safeguard that you can put on it, so that way they can send your passport back to you. The visa processing time is around 60 days. That's the time that they give themselves to process your application. But I will say that last fall, we did have some students whose application processing took longer than 60 days, even though their application was totally correct. So with that, we recommend that you apply as soon as possible. As soon as we send you your documents and you have them, submit your application right away. You should have everything together by the end of May. Submit everything by the end of May, so that way you don't need to worry about it. That way, hopefully by the end of July, you'll have your passport back, you'll have your visa, and you don't need to worry for all of August. You can just relax. If you submit your passport or your application later than the 60-day window, there's no way that we can guarantee that your application is approved on time, and there is absolutely zero way to expedite the process. So please keep that in mind. I'm really stressing it because it's really, really important. Okay. If you are traveling internationally this summer and you will need your passport, you can request it to be returned to you during processing. Generally, we don't recommend it if you don't need to do it, but if you already have a trip scheduled, then you can do it. You just need to make sure that you get your passport back to them so that way they can put the visa in it before you leave for Prague. So if you do that, you do need to submit your passport to them again. All right, so any visa application questions? This is the full list again. And you'll have a recording of this, but like I mentioned in your pre-departure guide, this whole first section is about the visa application process, and especially on this page, you have a complete checklist of every single required document and how many copies even that you need to make. It's on page 6. So please look over this so that way you know exactly how many or exactly which documents that you need. Okay, so we'll move on to the next part, which is about the program, so more fun things. The ECES program dates are from September 3rd until December 15th. These are the days when you're expected to be in Prague. If you want to arrive early, you can, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But this is the general overview of the program. So in terms of course registration, this is important, of course, and it's probably the biggest question that you have. Our course registration is all on our ECES website. Everything is done electronically, and it will be done on July 3rd. That's when registration begins. And registration is kept open from July 3rd until October 4th. So you can sign in and out of classes until October 4th, which is the end of our add drop period. Spaces in our courses are given on a first come, first served basis. So if you really want to take certain classes, it's important that you be online exactly when registration begins. It's at 6 p.m. on July 3rd Prague time, which is 12 noon New York Eastern Standard Time. And so like I mentioned, spaces in courses are given first come, first serve. It means that some courses may fill up. And this happens especially at the very beginning of registration because it's quite common for some students to sign up for 1 or 2 more classes than they actually plan to take. And that's your right to do that, but it also means that some courses fill up artificially more so than they will actually be full during the real semester. With that being said, we can't guarantee you space in any specific course, so it's really important that you have extra courses pre-approved by your home university in case your first or second choice is unavailable, either because the course isn't offered or because it's full by the time you register for it. We do have an automatic waitlist system, so in case you register for a course during registration which is already full, you'll be added to the waitlist, and then if enough students sign out of the class, you'll automatically be moved into the class list. And again, this can happen anytime between July 3rd and October 4th, so there's a really big window for this to happen. In terms of, so I'll show you how registration, sorry, I skipped the most important part. I'll show you how registration works on the ECES website. So if you go back to your page, I'll show you here. You'll see courses on the left side of the screen. So if you click on courses for now, you will not see anything here. It'll look much like this because the fall courses haven't been announced yet. The courses for the fall semester will be announced probably by late May. The course schedules may take a little bit longer to announce. Hopefully by mid-June, the course schedules will be completed. As soon as we have the course list available, we will send it to you. The academic board is meeting next week to decide on the list, so I hope to send it out by the end of May once everything is confirmed. But once the course registration list is announced, you will see, and I can show you another sample of the spring semester. You'll see a list like this, and so yours will just say ECES here, but it will look basically the same. So once course registration begins, you will click this register button. Once you register for a course, you'll be added to the list or the wait list, depending on whether or not the course is full. And then once you register for a course, this register button will turn to sign out, and that's how you'll sign out of the class. So it's really pretty simple. For now, when you log in, you'll just see a line here instead of a button, because the button won't appear until registration begins on July 3rd. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions about course registration. I'll move on to the next, about arriving in Prague. So Monday, September 3rd is the official arrival day. You must be in Prague by this day. If you want to come to Prague a few days early, or if you're traveling in Europe and want to arrive the day before, you can certainly do that. But if you want to stay at the dormitory, you need to reserve a room, and it is at an additional cost. The cost of an extra night is 375 Czech crowns with an ISIC card, or 500 Czech crowns if you don't have an ISIC card. This is an international student identity card that I'll talk about later. So if you want to stay at the dorm for extra nights, please email me or my colleague Christina. You have her email address in my acceptance email to you, and she will reserve it for you if there's space available. If you arrive on September 3rd, you'll have transportation provided for you from the airport to the dorm. Also, if you're arriving by train or bus, you can have transportation provided to you from there as well. If you go to the ECES pre-departure guide and scroll down to page, let's see where it is. Oh, here. Sorry, scroll down to page, this page, arriving in Prague. There's a link to a form here, so if you go through and click on the form, you'll see the arrival details page. You need to submit your arrival details on this form by August 1st in order to be provided with transportation from the airport to the dorm. If we don't receive this form from you, then we can't provide you with transportation because we need to order it in advance. Again, my colleague Christina is working on this, so you can contact her at this email address and she'll be able to help you. So make sure that you do this if you plan to arrive on the official arrival day and want to use the transportation. In terms of the dorm, if you arrive on September 3rd, we'll be waiting for you in the dorm lobby with your housing package. You'll need your passport at that time to check in. It's also important to know that sheets and towels are provided for you at the dorm, so you don't need to bring any of those sorts of things. And I also say not to overpack things like toiletries, because these are things that you can easily purchase on your first day in Prague. There's a convenience store just across the street from the dorm where you can buy these items really easily, and that way it leaves you some extra space. You don't have to worry about paying for overweight fees, hopefully, at the airport when you come, and it leaves you some space in your suitcase to be able to bring some things back home. We have housing at the Kamenskeho dorm, which is suite style housing. The dormitory themselves actually assigns the rooms. So we don't have the room numbers for you in advance of your arrival. You'll receive them when you get to Prague, but most of the time the dorm does honor the preferences. So don't worry too much, but if you have really special needs, some medical reason or religious reason, whatever it is, that you need to be living in a single room, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll do our best to honor your preferences that you listed on your housing form. You have a housing coordinator living on site. Her name is Zuzana, and she's sort of a legend for ECES. I'm sure that if you know former students, you've heard of Zuzana. And also in the dorm, you have access to a full kitchen that has some cooking supplies left over from previous semesters. And you have access to a laundry room, which is just for you guys. Laundry is provided as well. You have breakfast for you Monday through Friday, except for national holidays. So every weekday you'll have breakfast. And for the breakfast, this is a cold European-style continental breakfast. So you'll have things like meats, cheeses, fruits, veggies, some yogurt, hard-boiled eggs, juices, coffee, those sorts of things. But you're not going to be getting scrambled eggs and bacon. So just keep that in mind, that it's a real traditional European-style breakfast, the same kind that you'll find in most hotels, basic hotels across Europe. And so, in terms of where the dorm is located, this map is a map of Greater Prague. So this is the entire city, including the outskirts of the city. Sorry if you can hear the banging. We have some construction work going on outside of my office. So this is the greater Prague area, and you can see in the center there's some stars here, and these are some of the most important locations for you. So I'll zoom in a little bit so that you can see the city center. This is the true city center from the Castle District, which is where you're living, all the way through Old Town Square and the main train station. So this is the main part of the area, probably where you'll be most of the time. And this area over here, the star that's labeled Parlejova, this is your dormitory. So that's where your dorm is located. And this is the nearest tram stop. It's called Pohojilec. And this walk is about 5 minutes. So you can walk to the tram, it's quite easy, and the walk from your dorm to Prague Castle, which is right here, this area called Haračanské náměstí, this is about 10 minutes away. So 10-15 minutes, you're at Prague Castle walking, or you can walk 5 minutes to the tram stop. The tram from Pohojilec to Malostranska, which is the tram stop you'll most likely take the tram to get to the university, that tram ride takes 10 minutes. So from the walking from the dorm to the tram, and then from the tram to the university building is about 20 minutes in total. So you're right in the middle of everything, but you are not in Old Town, and this is for a good reason. It's mostly full of tourists, it's extremely expensive, and it's also, for living, not the safest place, because the only kind of crime that we really have in Prague is things like pickpocketing, and of course in the tourist area, that's where this is most likely to happen. So you are living a little bit outside of the tourist area, which means that you're in a much safer location, a much more residential location, so you'll feel much more like a Prague local. But it is important for you to know that you're not located right in Old Town Square. You're about 20 minutes away from the main university building in Old Town Square. You also have another classroom building. It's called Jindřiška. This is our secondary office, and this is about 10 minutes away from the main building. So when you go to register for classes, you'll notice that some classes are in the main building, which is here, Náměstí Jana Paláka. Some are in Jindřiška. And it's about 10 minutes away. So you can register for 2 classes, which are in each building back to back. You have enough time to get between them. So don't stress too much about that. All right. So in terms of orientation, again, your arrival day is Monday, September 3rd. You can check in anytime that day. There's 24-hour reception at the dorm, but we do recommend that you try and get in the morning or in the early afternoon, and that's because it really gives you a chance to unpack, settle in, rest a little bit, get to know the other students who are arriving, and you don't feel so stressed and rushed before a full week of orientation. In that evening, we always schedule a meet and greet, so that way you have a chance to meet your fellow students. This is a chance for you to go to a local pub, buy some dinner, meet the staff, meet other students. It's optional, but you're more than welcome to join us if you're in Prague already. On September 4th, you will have your housing orientation, which is just a brief introduction to the dorm. You'll have get your student ID card, and you'll have your welcome meeting with the university. On Wednesday, you will have a chance to buy your transportation pass. We recommend that you buy a transportation pass, although it isn't required. It's pretty inexpensive. For the whole semester, you're looking at about $50 US, and that's unlimited access to the bus, metro, tram. The Prague transportation system is known to be one of the most efficient public transportation systems in Europe, and also one of the most cost-effective, and so we really recommend this. You'll also have a city orientation event, which we call the Prague Scavenger Hunt, where you'll be paired with local students who will, You'll be paired with local students who will take some time to show you the city, so that way you can work on discovering it yourself. And then that evening, we always have a river cruise dinner where you can sail through the city center after you're really tired after walking around the city all day, and enjoy some food, which is provided by the program. On Thursday and Friday that week, you have your mandatory day trips. So these will be day trips outside of Prague, and they are required. This is not a free weekend. You'll have a chance to sign up for which day trip you want to go to, and you'll be able to go to places like probably Kutná Hora or Pilsen to visit the Pilsner Brewery, or Český Krumlov perhaps. Also places like Terezín, the former concentration camp, Lidice, or other important historical places. These trips are really important because they set you up with a good cultural and historic knowledge of the Czech Republic, which will inform your coursework for the rest of the semester. And then for the following 2 weeks, you have your intensive Czech language course. This course is a full 3 credits. It's not a throwaway course. You really need to do the work to do well in the course. And you do earn 3 credits. It's listed on your transcript just like any other course. So this here is a just brief overview of what orientation looks like so that you can visualize it a little better. So again, the first week you have all of your orientation activities, followed by 2 weeks of Czech language, followed by classes. So once classes begin, you meet in classes Monday through Thursday. Those are the only 4 days that we hold classes once Czech language ends. Czech language is the only class that meets on Fridays. And then again, you can see that after 2 full weeks of classes, you have the end of the add drop period, and this is by the end of the day. So you have plenty of time to try out classes for 2 full weeks so you get a good taste and feel for them before you need to make your final decisions. All right, so in addition to the mandatory day trips at the beginning during orientation, you also have some optional trips and activities. We usually have some weekend trips. These are just some examples of things that we'll have this semester, but you have the weekend trip to Budapest, which I believe is already in the works. Probably also a trip to Berlin and Krakow, maybe Vienna. We'll see what our operator offers. And then some optional day trips. Usually we have a day trip to Český Raj. This is what this picture is of. It's a region of the Czech Republic in the north of the country, which is really, really beautiful. It's known as Bohemian Paradise. We also offer some free activities throughout the semester, like a tour of Radio Free Europe or film screenings. And in the fall semester, we also include Thanksgiving dinner. So you'll be invited to this. It's a free event. So we really encourage you to come so that you can celebrate this American holiday with us. It's the only really American thing that we embrace during the semester. Susanna, who lives at the dorm with you, is our cultural coordinator, and she offers some cafe and gallery excursions. So these are things that we really recommend you take advantage of. She's an incredible lady, and she'll be able to teach you loads about the history of the country and also the art and culture. And we offer you the opportunity to go to the opera, ballet, theater at reduced prices for students throughout the semester. If you're interested to see what trips and activities might be available, you can go through the trips and activities list on our website. This will give you some past activities that we have, and it will give you a really good indication of what might be available for the fall. Again, the fall activities are not listed yet, but they will be soon. So once they are announced, we'll send you an email, and then you'll go to the website and click activities on the left side of the screen. And here you'll see your activities listed. Right now there won't be any, but there will be soon. And then you'll be able to sign up for them later this summer in advance. So you can pre-register for the trips and activities, and this way you know which you'll be going on. So some basic cultural things about Prague, just so that you have some preparation before you come this summer. The first thing that I want to mention is something that Susanna and many of our teachers have asked me to mention, and this is specifically to do your research before you come to Prague, and this is related specifically to the history of Czech Republic and Czechoslovakia and also the current political situation. There's a lot of good resources in English, things like Prague Morning or expats.cz or even Radio Free Europe. You can check out these resources and really learn something about the history of the country. This will really serve you well before you get to Prague. That way you have some understanding when you're talking to local Czech people, you're well informed. It's really, really important. At the end of the pre-departure guide, if you scroll through it, you'll see some resources that you can look at in order to read up on the history and the culture. The other thing that we recommend that you do seems like a really lofty goal, but as a non-Czech person living in Prague myself, I can tell you that it would be really useful, and that's to start learning some Czech. You have a whole summer in front of you, so spend 20 minutes every day on the Duolingo webpage. Right now it's not on the app version, but if you open the web page even on your phone, you'll be able to see Czech language. Spend 20 minutes every day learning it. At least learn the pronunciations. I cannot stress this enough. It's the most important thing, and it's what I did before I moved to Prague. It helped a lot. This way, when I tell you you're going to the Nadroni Třída tram stop, you know what that looks like on the map. It really seems like a simple thing, but trust me, it will change your life once you get here. And then you may also want to do some reading up about Czech culture because it's very different from what you're used to at home. I've listed just 3 things here that are really common that students mention being struck with when they first get to Prague. The first is the customer service culture in Czech Republic. Czech Republic is not a service-oriented country. It's just not part of the culture here. So it means that if you go to a restaurant and you sit down, people aren't necessarily going to be smiling at you or super friendly or always following up with you, asking you if you need anything else. They're going to take your order, bring you your food, and bring you your bill, and that's it. They're not looking for big tips because it's not very common to leave big tips here, but they're also not going to go out of their way to help you because they don't need to. They're just doing their job. So usually this is really shocking for Americans when they first get to Prague, and if you can be conceived as rude, but it's really not rude. It's just the Czech way. It's part of the culture here, and they're just really not expected to be overly friendly. It's just not part of the way they are. And again, if you do some research about the history of the country, you'll probably start to understand why it is the way that they are. The other thing that a lot of students mention is openness to strangers. So this is especially true when you try and make Czech friends. It can be a little bit challenging, especially at first, because Czechs aren't very used to talking to strangers or interacting with strangers. They don't really have acquaintances as a matter of principle. Usually they just have really good friends and people whose name they know, and that's it. So it means that when you're trying to make Czech friends, you really need to make an effort to see them a couple of times and really get to know them before they'll consider you a friend and call you to hang out or whatever it is. Charles University does have an international club with a buddy program, and I'll be sending you information about that this summer. And that way you can sign up for the buddy program. Hopefully you'll be matched with a buddy, and that person will be able to help you when you first get to Prague, and maybe will even become a friend for you or introduce you to other Czech people that you can become friends with. But if you're looking to make Czech friends while you're in Prague, and I really recommend that you do, you should just be aware that it's something you really have to put some time and effort into. It's not going to happen immediately like it might if it was the other way around, a Czech person coming to the US. And the last thing is about public transportation versus taxis or Uber. Public transportation is really widely used in Prague. Almost all Czech people have a transportation pass, and very few Czech people use taxis or Uber. Uber does exist in Prague, but it is technically not legal. So we do not recommend that you use Uber at all. It technically is not a legal service, so just be careful about it. There are other apps that we can recommend. Lyft2Go is one specifically, which is similar to Uber but works with licensed taxi cabs and therefore is legal. However, we also don't recommend that you use taxis very much. You hopefully will be buying a public transportation pass that will serve you for the whole semester, and this is the way that Czech people move around the city. So if you really want to live like a local in Prague, this is the way that you can do it. Transportation here is really effective, it's really cheap, and for Czech people, taking a taxi is just really expensive, and they feel that it's unnecessary because you'll find at least one transportation option, if not 2 or 3, near you at all times while you're in the city center of Prague. Bianca, maybe do you have anything that you want to add in terms of these cultural bits since you were in Prague as well?
Sure. I do agree. The Czech people may come off as rude.
Oh, Bianca, I think we lost you.
It's just a part of their culture. It's just who they are. It's ingrained in them for them not to talk to people. Tipping is, as Katie said, is not huge in Prague. You don't have to, and the customer service is not there. Don't expect people to ask you how your food is, things like that. You may be, one of the things that I had to get used to was asking for the bill rather than the bill just coming to me. And sometimes we would be sitting there for hours just waiting for the bill. So just keep that in mind. And Ubers and taxis aren't really needed. Prague is a very walkable city. And public transportation, if you are going maybe on the other side of the city, public transportation will get you there. And it's operating pretty late at night. I know it closes down at a point, but then there is the night tram that will get you to wherever you gotta go.
Yeah, exactly. So the metro goes from around 6 a.m. to around 12 or 12:30 midnight. But after the metro stops, the night trams start. So that's exactly right. They go on different routes than the day trams, but they will get you to the dorm. The tram stop, that the other star that I didn't talk about on the map, that is the tram stop where the night trams go to. So it's also about 5 minutes away from the dorm. So you'll be able to get home at night no matter what, even without a taxi. And Prague is also a really safe city. I feel lucky that I live here because I've never really felt particularly unsafe walking around. With that being said, of course, we recommend that you always walk around with a friend, keep somebody with you, buddy system. But if you come home by public transportation at night, you don't need to worry about it like you might have to worry about it in other cities. It's not dangerous to use the night trams. Okay, so some practical considerations. These are the last things that I want to mention. The first, again, highlighting the fact that you need to call your credit card company, bank, any card you could possibly use while you're abroad, even a backup emergency card if your parents are giving you one. This is so that they don't freeze your card when you start making transactions abroad. I also mentioned here the current exchange rate. Right now it's about 20 Czech crowns to $1. I mention this because not because it probably won't mean anything to you right now, but because I want you to keep in mind that the cost of living in Prague is a lot lower than the cost of living where you're from, most likely. And this means that when you first get here, it can be really easy to get carried away buying things that you wouldn't normally buy at home, whether that be groceries or clothes or at restaurants, going out more often than you normally do, or buying more expensive meals than you normally would. Because, you can go to a fairly nice restaurant in Prague and spend $10 for a really nice meal. And so that seems incredibly inexpensive. But after a while, it really adds up. It can really, really add up very quickly. So it's important that from the very beginning, you set a very strict budget for yourself in terms of eating out in Prague, in terms of groceries, in terms of all of these things. So that way you don't go overboard, and by the end of the semester, you still have some cash on hand. So that's really important. I even recommend working on that budget this summer, especially if you're working this summer, to save up some money. That way you know exactly where that money is going to go, how much you want to spend on travel outside of Prague. Also keep in mind that outside of Prague, when you go to countries like Germany or Austria, France, especially the UK, those countries are way more expensive than Prague, like astronomically more expensive than Prague. So also make sure that when you're budgeting based on where you're traveling. A meal in London will cost you 20 pounds, whereas here in Prague, it may only cost you 8, something like this. So that's really important. The other thing is to buy European-style travel adapters for your electronics. The shape of plugs in Europe is different than the shape of plugs in the US, so you need to buy an adapter to plug in things like your laptop, your camera charger, your phone charger, whatever. So you can buy these pretty inexpensively online. For example, on Amazon, if I type in Amazon European adapter, so I can show you what it looks like. Yeah, that's what it looks like. So it's these two round pins, and you can buy things like this or even smaller ones, that are really tiny, easy to pack, easy to put in your bag. I recommend that you get a couple of them. You can see a lot of them come in multiple packs. We don't recommend a particular brand, but any brand will do. Just keep in mind, and this is a good example here, that different places in Europe have different types of plugs. So if you're planning on going to the UK, then you'll need this style plug here, this type G. It looks a little bit different. So that pin looks something like this. So if you are planning on going to the UK or Ireland, you will need this kind of plug. If you're planning on bringing an appliance like a hair straightener, a hair dryer, a curling iron, a regular iron, whatever it is, be really, really careful. These things usually need voltage converters as well as adapters, and even with that, we don't recommend that you use American appliances that produce heat in Europe. they can still overheat even with appropriate voltage converters, and it can be really dangerous, a really big fire hazard. I can tell you my own personal horror story. Years ago when I was studying abroad in London, I plugged in my hair straightener with an appropriate voltage converter, everything I was doing right, and my hair melted because of how hot the hair straightener got, and that was with doing everything the right way. It's really important that you be really careful. So if you want to use these things, if you can't live without a hair straightener, I completely understand. We can point you in the direction of buying one when you get here so that you don't need to worry about it. I really strongly encourage you to buy the adapters before you get to Prague. That way you don't need to worry on the first day about running all over the city trying to find them. It can be really stressful, and it's sort of hard to find US to Europe adapters in Prague because most people in Prague need Europe to US adapters. So they're not usually commonly stocked in high volumes everywhere. And at the beginning of September, loads of international students are coming to Prague, so they can be sold out. So it will save yourself a lot of hassle if you just order, a 3 or 5 pack from Amazon before you come. It'll also probably be less expensive for you. And then the last thing that I want to mention is the official recommendation from Charles University, which is to get an ECES card. This is the card I was talking about when I was mentioning the discount for the extra nights at the dorm. It stands for International Student Identity Card. This is the website, isec.org. And this card will give you access to student discounts that your Charles University ID card may not give you access to. For most student discounts in the Czech Republic, your Charles University discount or card will be sufficient. But in other countries in Europe, sometimes you need an ECES card in order to get discounts. If you go to this website, you'll see the different companies and services that they work with where they provide discounts. And you can have a look through and see if it's worth the cost of the card if you think that you'll use these discounts. If you do think that you'll use them, I also really recommend that you buy the ECES card before you come to Prague because you can't get it once you get here. And it can take a couple of weeks to be sent to you, so it's important that you do it this summer before you leave for Prague. Okay, so that's the end of what I have to tell you. Just a couple of last minute, reminders just to drive the point home. Remember that the visa processing time is 60 days. Sometimes they do take a little bit longer. So if you submit your application by the end of May, you should be good to go. Remember as well that if you have an error in your application, it will delay the processing time. If there's something wrong with your application, then they will pause your processing time and it could take much longer for your visa to be approved. So if you want to send your application to me via email to look over before you submit it to the embassy or consulate, I'm more than happy to do so. Please send it to me. I'm happy to do that. And I think that's it. I will be sending out more information about course registration once the courses are announced, so be sure to check on your inbox. Also, be sure to check in your inbox for emails from my colleagues, Maria and Christina. It's possible their emails could go into your spam folder, so just keep an eye out for those. And does anybody have any other questions? I don't see any. Okay, so I guess we can go ahead and end unless you want to add anything, Bianca.
Oh, no. The students know they can email me, and I'm also here for them as well. Just for your visa documents, once I receive your visa documents, if you are on campus, I will send you an email. You can pick it up in the office. If not, I will mail it to your home address.
Perfect. All right. So thank you guys so much for coming. I hope that it was useful for you. Have a good day, and I'll see you in September. Bye, guys.
Bye.